we think of Ed Bradley, we remember a reporter who listened. In all his interviews for 60 Minutes, Ed waited to hear everything the interviewee had to say. And when it was Ed's time to talk, he knew exactly what to ask.
You ever think of trying to pass?
My grandmother would have died. It would never occur to me to be anything but what I was.
60 Minutes correspondents Lesley Stahl and Steve Kroft are here with us today. You both knew him a long, long time. You started about the same time?
Yeah. Back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I can remember a conversation Ed and I had. I think a lot of people listening will relate to this. He didn't want to be pigeonholed as the black reporter, because he was obviously one of the first. And yet, he wanted to cover the civil rights stories, and he was so ambivalent because he knew he could bring a special sensibility, but he didn't want to become early in his career identified that way. He wanted to cover all the kinds of stories. And it was a big conflict and a problem.
There wasn't anything he couldn't cover. You first ran into him where?
Back at WJXT in Jacksonville, which was the CBS affiliate, and Ed was in the Atlanta bureau, and he used to come through there all the time. And, you know, he had plenty of time to sit down and talk to people. And, I mean, there's so many stories of people that he helped and encouraged, and I was one of the ones very early in my career.
Yeah. You know, it's so competitive over at 60 Minutes. Were
Really?
there stories that you would see him do that you just said, oh, man, he just so nailed that?
Well, it wasn't competitiveness with Ed.
Right.
I don't think you had a sense, did Steve, that he was one of the guys who was trying to step over people, but
if you got in his turf, if you thought that,
he was
going after a story,
but
he'd
he
come in
didn't
and
come
have
after your
a
story.
conversation with you.
Right.
But he didn't come after your story.
Yeah.
But what he did...
His producers might on occasion.
Well, not mine. Anyway,
So
I want to tell you this.
Which ones you liked?
No, I wanted to say that what Ed had, and right from the beginning, was a very special voice. And that is not easy to achieve.
Yeah.
He just had a special way because he was so comfortable in his own skin that he could punch through his real person, his real sense.
No artifice, no hype, no... It
just
was
the real thing.
Always the real Ed.
But it had an original sound to it and a look.
Yeah.
Remember when he would put his glasses on and look out over at you and... I mean, whoever he was interviewing, give him that, come on.
You know what, I was thinking about this because one of the things we showed was him with Timothy McVeigh.
Right.
Everybody and their brother went down to that prison. I was there, Barbara Walters was there. We all went down there and spent time in that cell with Timothy McVeigh to try to get him to go on television. Ed was not famous for the get. That might have been the get, one of the great gets of all time.
He worked it really hard. And he had... Ed's always had, from the first day he started at 60 Minutes, had a great team of producers who are feeling this loss.
Yeah. I saw Michael Radusky yesterday. People just were tears pouring
the whole
down
office.
there. Yeah, yesterday.
And one of the reasons he had such a great team of producers was because everybody wanted to work with him, because he was just such a dream, such a wonderful person to spend time with.
Yeah.
Ed's life was very, very layered. As Bob Schieffer said, you know, he had his friends range from Jimmy Carter to Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
And he had friends, and he had a life in New Orleans. He had a life in Aspen. He had a life at Madison Square Garden. You got calls from security guards yesterday. There was nobody that he met that he didn't touch in some way.
Yeah.
And you know, people who watch, my inbox is just filled with people who just watched him and loved him that way. Can I tell you a story about his office?
Please.
I've been trying to tell people the story about the office. My office is next to his. And he loved music, as you've been saying, and particularly jazz. So jazz was coming out of his office. If he was in, there was music.
Right.
But something else. He loved flowers. And he ordered a bouquet of flowers for his office once a week, of fresh and always little and beautiful.
Right.
And they came every week, and they sat on his desk, and they're sitting there now.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And he stopped to smell them. You know, that was, to me, the thing about Ed. So many people in this business are really driven to the exclusion of all else.
Yeah.
Not Ed. Ed really put a lot of time into living his life and enjoying the things that mattered to him. And that, in many ways, I think was his greatest accomplishment. I think he really enjoyed living, really enjoyed being Ed Bradley.
We admired him on so many different levels, and I think that may have really just captured it right there. You both, go ahead, real quick.
I was going to say what's so wonderful is he was very sick a couple of years ago. He had quintuple bypass surgery, and he wasn't recovering, and then he did. So he spent the last 2 years of his life in excellent health, feeling good, looking good, and I think that at least makes me smile for him.
We thank you so much for coming in and sharing your stories this morning. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Harry.
it.